So what's going on, everybody? So I don't think I actually ever went over why or how I got the name Code Goblin before, and it's actually the stupidest story ever. Like I don't think I don't think I could sit here and actually make up like a great name. Like this used to be my rap name or my gang name or something like that way back in the days. Nah. So what happened was I started doing this YouTube thing with the idea that I'm going to first start it off doing all these Lambda videos, following my journey around and everything, and it was gonna be cool. It was going to be my way of documenting everything and leaving something for other students or potential students to be able to look up and say, okay, this looks great, or this looks like garbage, or he went through a really rough time, so I don't want to do it. You know, whatever you gotta say. And I'm talking to my buddy who was at the time my mentor. He was the one who talked me into going into code and kind of sold me onto it and made me quit my whole damn job and everything for this. And he's like tossing out names. He's tossing out these stupid names, man, like Code this and Code that. And what about the magical programmer? And, and you know, naturally, like I'm like these names are getting stupider and stupider. But as it goes on, and I'm saying no to everything, like he kind of starts like winning me over with these stupid names because I just want this thing to be over. And so finally, he ends up with Code Goblin. And at the time, I was watching this other dude from somebody you may know if you watch my video, but Code Ninja and a few other YouTubers and all that do code-related stuff. And I was like, you know what? His name's cool. He done put a whole theme around it and everything. Like he got ninja sounds in his intro and all that, and all of his like example code uses ninja stuff. And I was like, man, maybe I could do that. So after I made my first few videos, I realized that I wasn't really creative enough to do all of that. So I don't do none of that. First off, like I don't think there are any famous goblins or anything like that I could use other than maybe Lil Wayne, and that's about it. But I couldn't really do anything with that. And I thought about changing the name, but then like, cause I never really call myself that, but then I see that a lot of other people, like when they message me, they end up calling me that. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll keep it. So I don't know if you guys have any suggestions what I should change it to or something, or if you actually like it, let me know. But talking about my first few days at the job, so I had a really weird scenario for me. It started off with them basically like we negotiated the crap out of my contract. Like they gave me a number and I was like, I can't do it for that number. I just can't do it, boss. You know, I was like a broke mechanic at the time. I was like, you give me that number, it's like I can't do it, boss. Nope, not for that number. And so we kept negotiating, and I tried to negotiate other things besides money. I was trying to negotiate time off and all this other stuff. Mind you, my company gives me a lot of time off and a lot of benefits, but I was trying to find something else. Like maybe we can do the review of my performance like before the normal time that you guys do, and then give me like a raise or something like that. And naturally they're like, nah, son. And so I was like, all right. So we kept negotiating up until we got to the point where we could both agree, okay, that's good. You know, that's at the minimum, that's market value. Like they started off pretty low and I wasn't with that. So I negotiated them up about $10,000 from the original price or original salary price. I'm over here acting like I'm merchandise. But the original salary, and so negotiated that, and then like a $5,000 like moving bonus. So which generally comes with a lot of companies when you have to relocate, they'll give you some type of monetary exchange as a bonus, which gets taxed kind of differently. But they needed me right away, so I drove up there with the family, and it was just supposed to be a like say hi to everybody type of thing because we already had my start date set for later. but they ended up kind of doing a like a FBI move, right? And so they got me into this little room by myself, and they brought me some coffee and everything. And I'm like, dude, this is an interrogation. But what they did is they came in with the laptop, and they like I sat down with the HR people and the office people, and just went through a lot of the onboarding, signing paperwork, setting up my laptop, going over all the applications that we use, how to track my time and all this other stuff. And they wanted me to stay there longer so that I could sit down with the team and start like working and everything. But I drove 3 hours to get up there, and I had my family with me, and so I was like, I can't do it. So I ended up taking the laptop with me, and don't tell anybody, but I actually ended up dropping the laptop the first day that I got it, and and I was freaking out, but like it was one of those, like, it was quiet drops, and it hit the carpet. So in my mind, I'm like, I can check this later. As long as I don't make any sudden movements, nobody will look at me and be like, did he just drop a super expensive ass laptop? And so I just like kind of just did one of these where I like slid my arm down my leg, like if I was just gonna scratch my ankle or something, and picked up the laptop and just kept moving. So that was the first time I dropped it. The second time was in the car. That don't even count. That's the car. You can assume that things are just gonna fly around unless you put them in a seatbelt or something. But I started. After that, I got home and I started working. But I think I spent like the first week or two just looking at code and running a bunch of things, trying to see where I would fit into everything, going over what features I would be working on. And at the time they needed me to do test automation, which I never did test automation before, and so I had to learn how to use Cypress with a bunch of other stuff, with Cucumber, writing Gherkin statements. Mind you, these are all like things that I've never heard of up until that point, so I had to kind of pick up on it pretty quickly. And I was working remote for the first few weeks, and then I ended up being in that hotel that you guys may have seen me in a previous video. And I was working in a hotel by myself for about 2 weeks, which it was kind of cool and kind of not cool. It was cool because I got to be in a hotel paid for by the company and go to work, and like my job was just like right across the street, so I could just cross the street and be at work. And it's been a long time since I've kind of been on my own in a hotel and all that. But at the same time, it's a hotel. There's like not much that you can do in there, and you're like super bored all the time, and you don't have good enough connection to play video games or anything like that. And I was away from my family and all that, so I didn't really like that too much. I was also spending a lot of my time at that point looking up places to stay. And so after work, I would leave the hotel, or I would leave work and then immediately start driving around to all these places that I'd set up appointments for before I even started work. And I would go to these places, and one place was like, you start realizing the cost of living difference between like the place where you're coming from and the place that you're going to when you start doing this, because I realized that a lot of the places there were a lot more expensive than where I came from in North Carolina. So I was looking for decent sized places. They had to have like certain requirements and all that. One house that I went to look at, the pictures were beautiful, right? So the pictures looked great. The description of everything, all the stuff that came along with it looked great. It was a house, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go check this out. So I drove over there. It's a dirt road, and I had my wife with me at this time, but it was a dirt road. And so I was like, you know what, I can totally live with this dirt road. I don't care. That's cool. But the more you drive into it, the more the trees kind of eat you, and it eats the sunlight, and so it starts getting dark, and you have broken down vehicles that look like they were set on fire, and it looks like a scene from The Purge. And so we finally get to the place, and I swear this looks like, first thing I say to my wife is like, I look at her and I'm like, this is a murder house. And she's like, what? And I'm like, this is where people come to get murdered. And she's like, no. I'm like, dude, that's like Freddy Krueger's house right there. And so it was a much older home. Had a lot of broken down vehicles around there. The back, like it was one of those houses that just have places that are like locked, like just random doors that are locked on the outside that lead to like some magical world type of deal. And the backyard actually was pretty nice, but they had like a murder hut. So you have the murder house and then the murder hut. So so both places had high probabilities of murder happening. And I told my wife, I was like, yeah, we can't stay here, so we got to look somewhere else. And then the next place that we looked at was a really nice townhouse type of deal. It was like 3 floors. Like the whole house itself was super skinny, but it was spacious because of the way that they created the layout and the fact that it was 3 floors. But like the owner, he was super nice and everything, and the home was very clean, and you can tell he took care of it. But at the same time, while we were there, he's like, I'm gonna need y'all to take off your shoes. I'm gonna need y'all to not touch the walls. Don't touch this. Hover over the floor and just kind of let the wind take you. Don't actually touch anything. And once you move in, you're not allowed to do this and that and blah blah blah. And so I was like, man, is this like a club? Like, what is going on? So naturally, we didn't end up there. The place that we did end up at, my wife, like, it wasn't my first choice. But she got fooled by the amenities because as soon as you come in, like, everything is all cobblestone, everything. And you know, some people just love cobblestone shit. Like, you'll put cobblestone everywhere and people just love it. And so they had a pool, and guess what? The pool is surrounded by cobblestone. And so it was a wrap. Like at that point, like she didn't care what the apartment looked like. That's it. And so we just went to the pool for the first time like 2 weeks ago, and we've been here for like about a year now. So, but the apartment itself, it's weird. It's the only apartment that I've ever seen like this, where you walk in somewhere and it's dark and you're like, I'm gonna turn on the light. So you kind of like, you get this feeling like I just need to slap the wall and there's got to be a light switch right there, and I'm gonna flick it, turn on the light, and that's it, move on with my life. Not this place. This place, you do that a few times, you look around, and then you remember, crap, the light switch is actually on the other side of the room, and I need to walk in through the darkness, step on all the Legos, and damn near dislocate my ankles, like trying to get around all of the stuff that's going on, just to turn on that light switch so that I can go into the other room and no longer care whether or not that light is even on. So that's what you have to go through in like almost every room in the house, because they didn't put the light switches in the right place. And I know it's such a small thing to complain about, but once you like start living like that and you have these times where like, man, I'm tired, I don't really feel like going across the world to turn on a light switch that I'm only gonna need in order to get to where I'm in a different room. So very annoying. But we're making it home and we're making it comfortable as best as we can. Other than that, the project kept going on for another few months. I think for me it was about 4 to 5 months around that time, and it was a great experience because of the fact that like I was able to learn a lot from the team, from all of the stuff that they put together, and a lot of the stuff that I learned at Lambda, both from being a student and being a TL, transferred over and let me gain enough experience so that I could just immediately look at something. I already had a system in place on how I would go through other people's code to learn it and then apply it myself. So it wasn't that bad. And I even I was able to work on a few features too and test them out and then present them to the client, which was a whole nother experience in itself, because while I can't talk about the client, I can't say that they were in this really like big building. We all kind of just we all rode together, parked, and then walked like a few blocks over to their building downtown, and then went up like 4 floors, got into this big conference room where I think it was probably like usually around 10 people or so that were there like ready for our presentation. So we presented everything, and I always had this anxiety moment, even though we overly test every single thing that we were about to present before that. Like, I always felt like if you click something wrong, something's gonna break. If you type in a word or something, it's like, I just feel like that's the time that it's gonna break. Like, even though we tested so much, I feel like the only time it's ever gonna break is when we're in front of a client. So I always had like butterflies in my stomach, even while I was the one presenting. And so I like super practiced everything, double checked all the stuff that I was gonna go over, double checked all the stuff everybody else was gonna go over, and just to make sure that if something were to break, that I'd be able to say, hey, don't show them this yet. It's not ready. But the team was they were very into a lot of stuff that they were doing, very professional, and so they did a fantastic job with a lot of the stuff that we worked on. So we never really had that problem in that project. We had that problem in some other projects, especially when showing off things like proof of concepts, because we were using a third-party library, and there were a lot of things that we did discover, and then a lot of things that we didn't discover. And so one of the things that we didn't discover until it was too late was the rate limits. And the rate limit ended up hitting right when we were about to show them the proof of concept, to let them know what we can and can't do and all that. And so I ended up just having to show them a blank application with some mock data and being like, this is what we could do and blah blah blah. But it didn't have the same feel. Like I don't know, it just wasn't the same. So after that, we ended up finishing everything and handing it off to the client. For a little bit, we were still supporting, just in case there were any bugs or any changes that needed to be made, because we're giving them MVP, which means that there's probably some features that were still left out that they would end up having to extend for. But so far, that like, they only called me once to fix something, and it wasn't even like it wasn't on our side. It was just something like they made a mistake somewhere, and so they just needed some assistance with getting the data done properly. But after that, we had happy hour, where like this was like the first time I had a drink in probably like 2 years or so. So I was like sipping it, and then after like 10 minutes, I was like, you know what, I'm just drinking water for the rest of this, because I cannot. And so I was like, man, I'm done. I give me water, give me lemonade, something like that. But that was pretty much it. And then after that, I can go over my second project with you guys next time. Thank you for sticking with me. I don't have an outro. I'm actually learning about all the stuff that YouTube does through my 5-year-old daughter. She knows everything, so she'll tell me to tell you guys to, if you like the video, to like it, subscribe, and maybe even hit that notification bell button. Share the video, and I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you all next time.